Good morning. Welcome to Three Things Thursday. There's three things that I wanted to talk about today. This kind of goes back to this journey that I'm on and some of the things that I've experienced, and really comes from a desire just to help other people on their journey. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that I'm kind of talking about my faith journey, how I feel about the Bible and how I feel about Jesus and how I feel about God, and just really trying to discover the truth, the real truth. And I think that the Bible offers that. There's a lot of hidden information, hidden truths in there that take a little bit of a deeper dive to really understand. And so I want to start by talking about my salvation experience, which was a long time ago when I was a teenager. And then I kind of want to talk about how that's led towards a more awakened and enlightened journey and experience. And so it's been an amazing ride, I'll say that much, but I'll start with this. So when I was in high school, around my freshman or sophomore year, I think it was probably my freshman year, I went to a lock-in at a local university where I accepted Jesus into my heart. That's when I experienced God for the first time. And what I would say regarding anyone that's watching this video or anyone that you know that either doesn't believe in God or doesn't know or doesn't think about it, what I would say is the best thing you can do to meet God or to learn or to understand or experience in God is just be open to the idea that God is real and that He wants to experience you, and that if you're open, He will reveal Himself to you. That's how it works. God does not encroach on our free will. So when we say things like, I don't believe in God, then God is not going to be present for you. That's just how it works. So for you to actually experience God and to believe in God, you have to be open to the idea that God is real and that God exists. And that's how you're going to experience a God. So when I gave my life to Jesus, I made the commitment and believed that He was real. That's how it started. So to me, what salvation means is, it's really the definition for me is that salvation is the understanding that we are eternal beings. I think most people think that life happens and then we die and then we don't know what happens after that. And I think there's a lot of evidence throughout history that there are things going on outside of what we see that our normal five senses can't detect. And until you've had an experience like that, you're most likely not going to experience God. You're not going to experience these fourth dimensional or fifth dimensional experiences because you're not open to experiencing that. And again, God does not encroach on your free will. So if you don't want to experience God, you're not going to experience God. And but there are times deep down when we feel that, we want to know the truth. We want to know why we're here. We want to know what our purpose is. Well, if you want to know what your purpose is, all you have to do is ask God, and He will eventually reveal Himself to you. One thing I also want to talk about through that experience is that once I gave my life to Christ and surrendered my existence to Him, that's when things started to change for me as far as my life and how the direction of my life was going to go. And one thing that happened shortly after that, and again, I'm going to talk about these experiences so that you understand my testimony, what I believe happened, and how it has formed my journey throughout all these years. So back when I was a senior in high school, and I have a witness, my best friend Kevin and I were out doing things we shouldn't be doing late at night on the weekend. We were out in the field next to the river in the woods, and we were just screwing around doing things we shouldn't do. But ultimately, when you're in high school and you're driving around and in on someone's private property, you can get in a lot of trouble. And so we were very fearful, scared that what was going to happen. And long story short, we got the car stuck, and it took us a long time to get the car out. And by the time we got the car out, the car had died. We had no battery. And so we had to push the car like at least a half a mile on a dirt road that had like ruts in it. It was just a really bad situation. We were scared. And we ultimately got to the point where we couldn't push the car anymore. We were probably had been pushing there for like 30 minutes or something, 45 minutes, and just had no strength or no energy left. And so we prayed. We prayed to God to help us, and we didn't know how or what that was going to look like, but we just prayed for help. And I am not exaggerating when I say pretty much the moment that we finished our prayer and got out of the car, there was this guy walking up to us in the middle of this field, at least like half a mile from the nearest road. And he had a picnic basket in one hand and he had a Bible in the other. And he asked us if he could help. And it was like, yeah. So you can help us push this car for a half a mile and get it back to the road so that we can at least get it towed, right? So this guy helped us push the car. And again, this is like middle of the night on the weekend, so there's no explanation for why he was there other than we prayed, and then God provided an angel for us. But ultimately, he pushed the car. We helped him get it to the side of the road, and when we got to the side of the road, we're really thanking him and everything, and we're like, we don't know how we're going to get the car home, but at least we can, get it towed. We can get home. And he said, well, why don't you try to start the car? And we thought, well, we can't start the car. The battery's dead. We've tried that, but anyway, we got in and we started the car. I mean, Kevin turned the car over and it started right up. And it was mind-blowing to us. And so Kevin was in the driver's side. The man standing there was next to him, and I was on the passenger side. So I exited the vehicle, got out to thank him, and basically he was gone. We turned around and went to thank him, and there was no trace of him anywhere. And so we really believe that was an angel experience, that God sent that man to help us. And at the time, maybe it was to help us get out of trouble, but looking back on it 35 years later, obviously it was a faith-building moment, and it was something that I've never forgotten over 35 years. So to me, that's the first thing I wanted to talk about, was this idea that if you want to experience God, you have to be open to experiencing God and believe that he's real and that he wants to be in your life, and then he will reveal himself to you. So that's the first part of this video. The second thing I want to talk about is what happens after salvation. Been a Christian for 35 years, and on this journey I've realized that it's a lot more important to follow the teachings of Jesus than anything else. And Jesus really talked about two commands: love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So I think if you just take those two commandments, that sort of wraps everything else all within those two teachings. So but ultimately, what I realized over that 35-year journey of, I was a youth pastor on and off for 15 years, trying to find my purpose and a good fit for me in ministry. And I just never really found what I felt like was what I was supposed to be doing. And I felt like I was following in faith and following the journey that God wanted me on, but I didn't feel fully into what I was doing. Like as a youth pastor, I didn't feel like it was my life's purpose. And so part of my challenges throughout my life has been this idea that, the vast majority, I don't know if it's the majority anymore, but for most of my life, the majority of Christians believe that the Bible is inerrant and that everything in the Bible is meant to be taken literally. And I've just had a real major issue with kind of confronting that challenge of, is the Bible inerrant in a way that most Christians preach it to be, or are there contradictions, or are there things in the Bible that we have to resolve? And so what I think my difficulty is always just taking everything on blind faith. And so I think God gave us brains and logic to try to work this stuff out. And so over this 35-year journey, I realized that I was not whole. I was not content with how I viewed God and the Christianity and the Bible. And ultimately, I did this video a couple weeks ago on the ontology of God and how you can't really change the five firm things about God, which is God is omniscient, all knowing, all powerful, omnipotent, omnipresent, omnibenevolent, all those things that, you know, are true core values or core things that never change in God. So then I line up the Bible according to that belief system and then see what lines up and what doesn't align. So anyway, fast forward to my 50th birthday, which was a couple of years ago. And when I turned 50, it was really a time for me to reflect on what I had done in my life and whether or not had achieved anything or did what I wanted to do with my life. And I realized that I was just extremely discontent with my life and the things I had done. Not necessarily bad things, but more about not doing the positive things that I wanted to do with my life. And I think everyone goes through bad experiences and bad things that they regret and they wish they could take back. Ultimately, we can't change the past, so we have to learn from those experiences. And so on my 50th birthday, it's like almost like a life review came through of, man, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. Some of the things you did were very selfish and took away from the things that you could have been doing with God and the will that He has for me. And so that night, I really just prayed and meditated and had an experience where I just asked God to open my mind, my heart, guide me, lead me to what I was missing all these years. Like, I knew I was missing something. I knew that there was more out there, that there was a higher truth. Actually, let's talk about the higher truth. That's really what I asked God to do. Is I said, if there is truth in the Bible, if there's a higher truth that's not being revealed to me, I want to know what the higher truths are. And man, that started this journey that just has been mind-blowing for the last couple of years. So first of all, I just want to encourage any of you that are struggling with your faith to just seek God first and foremost. Yes, your pastors can help, but ultimately all of the truth is going to come revealed straight from God. And I know this from experience because I've battled this for 35 years. You go to pastors and one pastor tells you one thing and another pastor tells you something else. Well, that's because they have their own belief systems and they have their own thought processes, and they were taught by somebody. So it's important for you to have your own faith, your own thought process. What do you believe? So when I prayed this prayer, I just said, God, if there is a higher truth, something that's not revealed in the Bible, I want to know. And man, it was like a lightning storm came through of knowledge. I can't even begin to tell you all of the different things I learned and experienced, but I want to say this. So the first thing that I watched, so God led me, and I mean this, God led me directly to Prime Video, to the Gaia Network, GAIA. And the Gaia Network is really for people that want to learn more about the unseen, like metaphysics and quantum physics and like sacred geometry, things that most people have never even heard of, astronomy, astrology, all these things that tie together. And so by basically doing like a 7-day free trial on Prime for the Gaia Network, it's GAIA, I sort of, it blew my mind, honestly. It opened my eyes to higher truths that I just didn't know were out there. The first show I watched was called The Secret. And some of you watching this are immediately going to know exactly what I'm talking about, and some of you have never heard of it. But it is one of the most influential shows of all time. It's been viewed by over 500 million people. I think her goal is to have it viewed by over 1 billion people between the book and the movie. And I will say this, it's super cheesy and actually kind of hard to watch and hard to get through, but it is true. And it's basically a higher truth of what's really the truth that's been hidden from us for 2,000 years or 3,000 or 4,000 years. But there's a lot of information that has been hidden from everyone, really. And if you look back at the history of how civilizations was formed, it was formed through religion and politics. And the people that were in power wanted to keep power, so they hid a lot of this information away. That's the fact. And this is an undeniable truth. And when you start going down this journey, you'll see that it is absolutely undeniable that there's a lot of higher truth that's been hidden, taken out of the Bible. There's been books upon books written about this stuff. Most people have never read them. But what I would say, and I'll talk about this later, there's a kind of what I would call a coaching tree. But ultimately, when you do a timeline historically of the people that have learned this information and written books about it, there's a lot of information out there. So the first show was called The Secret. The second was called The Abundance Code. I would highly recommend watching this. It really just helps you understand. So for someone that struggles with scarcity and lack, in other words, you're always worried about where the next meal is coming from. You're always worried about next paycheck. You have trouble appreciating what you have. This is for you, man. The Abundance Code is the way to really rewrite your brain and your mind on how you think about the world. I think most of us live in scarcity. There's no question. About 70 to 80% of people on the planet live in scarcity, meaning they don't know, they don't have enough money or funds or resources to get through the next 90 days, say. So that's a huge one. And the last one, most importantly, for sure, at least, I think they're all equally important, but this one was the most impactful, was Rewired by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And Dr. Joe Dispenza, you can pull him up on YouTube. He's all over the place. He is who I would consider the number one neuroscientist on the planet when it comes to rewiring your brain. And man, I can go on and on and on about this. I have completely changed my life because of this show. I used to be a terrible insomniac. Don't struggle with sleep at all anymore. I've been an addict, and while I still struggle with that to a degree, I'm ultimately a million times better than I was. There's a lot of little things like that. So those three shows, The Secret, The Abundance Code, and Rewired, they will open your mind to possibly a higher reality that you don't know exists right now. So that's what I would consider my awakening experience, when I really decided to stop believing all the things I had been told my entire life and just start discovering the truth. So when it comes to like my identity, the ego, my personal self, I'm trying to move that aside and create more of a spiritual version of myself, meaning letting light, the God of light, shine through and be more revelatory in my life and continue to open things, open doors, open opportunities. So that's, I would say, salvation is the first step in a journey where you're actually making a commitment to try to figure out what we're here for, but that eternal nature of who we are. Once we understand that, then we can be awakened to a higher reality, which is the reality that we are actually creating our own reality, that that the world we live in has been created through our consciousness, not the other way around. What I mean by that is obviously the physical world was created by God, but the reality that we live in right now is created by our own consciousness, collectively and individually. So you are creating your own life, whether you know it or not. You're creating all these experiences in your life, whether you know it or not. Consciously, unconsciously, subconsciously, you are a creator, and that's what we're all here to do. So that's kind of what awakening is you're awakening to this concept that there's more to life and more to what's going on in the world than you realize. And then the last part of this, a journey, is the ascension journey, a true journey of enlightenment. And I was able to experience a short period of peace and enlightenment that I can only describe as the peace of God, which transcends all human understanding. And it comes directly from suffering. The difference between suffering and pain is that pain can be inflicted by others, but suffering is inflicted on yourself. And what I mean by that is, like, obviously everything going on in the world right now, we can talk about pain and strife and everything else. That's the cause and effect of someone trying to control and trying to, um, you know, create a life against someone's free will. Whereas suffering, I define it as the suffering we create for ourselves. You can look at your situation in your life right now, and you have a roof over your head, you got food on the table, all your bills are paid, you got beautiful children, beautiful family, and yet you're in suffering. You're struggling. Why is that? And not everybody maybe does, but I know I was struggling badly, and I think it's because I realized that there's more to life, that the journey is really the focus, and I think we're all focused on the results and the end game rather than the journey itself and staying present. And so that's a big part of ascension and the enlightenment process is you are manifesting and co-creating your life with the divine creator. So you have an understanding that, you know, nothing can really hurt you or bother you. It's a level of peace that, again, is beyond human understanding because it's peace given you by God. And I had a situation in my life a couple months ago that created a great deal of suffering. And what I mean by that is I was creating the suffering myself. My thoughts behind the experience are what created the suffering. And so, because my thoughts created the suffering, I know that I can change my thoughts, therefore, eliminate the suffering. So, that's what the third step is. Once you've understand salvation, understand that we are eternal beings, then as you become awakened to this idea that you are creating your own life, and that's kind of like the matrix. It's like when people talk about we're living in a matrix, what I would say is we are living in a matrix, but we are living in a matrix of free will. And that's what the difference is between the movie The Matrix, where we are all slaves. Well, we're not slaves. We are actually right now we are free will slaves, if you want to call it that, because we are choosing to be asleep. Once you awaken, you can't go back. You no longer are part of the political system or the religious system. You understand that there's a bigger peace out there, that there's a bigger truth out there, and you want to become part of that, and you want to help other people. So that's what I'm doing this for, is to try to help other people grow closer to God and understand the higher truths that I have been fortunately privy to. So I think that's all I've got. But I appreciate everyone hanging out and listening. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I would love to continue this conversation. You guys are awesome. I appreciate all you guys watching. I hope you have an awesome rest of your Thursday or rest of your week. Thanks. Have a great week.